Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. Alright, I am here today with just like a little overview of small boxed games. Something that I have been enjoying a lot lately. These seem to be games that are easier to hit the table. They don't take up as much space, maybe is not as much time, and they can offer an experience that is almost as epic or as involving as a big game experience. At least a few of them, but sometimes they offer just smaller little experiences, and that can be a lot of fun too, especially maybe when you're just kind of feeling overwhelmed with other things in your life, or maybe just overwhelmed with learning big, complex, deep, involved games. I recently got Chronicles of Drunagor, and man, that thing is dense. That rulebook's like almost 60 pages, and it's a complex game. And right now, my head is just not in that space. It's going to take me a little time to learn that game. But I've been enjoying looking at little games a lot lately. Ever since I discovered Dungeoneer many years ago. Now I know I've been like threatening to do a video on Dungeoneer, and I just need to do it. But I discovered this a long time ago, and it has always been just one of my favorite little games. It's pretty cool. I have 4 sets here. Actually, I've got 2 more small sets up on the shelves over there, but I don't have the boxes for those. But I've got the Legendary Dungeoneer, Wrath of the Serpent Goddess, Epic Dungeoneer, Call of the Lich Lord, and then 2 regular sets, Tomb of the Lich Lord and Vault of the Fiends. So there are a few that kind of like link where you're supposed to play kind of a campaign from one game to the next. It doesn't really feel like that. It just kind of feels like the numbers are getting bigger as you play, the damage numbers, the defense numbers, that kind of thing. But these are really cool little games, and getting introduced to these quite a few years ago made me realize that how much game you can cram into a small box and how much of a thematic experience you can get out of just a couple little decks of cards. I think Dungeoneer is a game that really does shine as a competitive game, and it's one of the best competitive dungeon crawls I've played. It's really cool the way that you earn points to spend on good things for yourself and on bad things for your opponents. And then there's also a pretty good set of solo rules on BGG that combines a few different sets of solo rules into a pretty good system, and I enjoy playing it like that. So I'm always kind of on the lookout for smaller games that give me that kind of like big box feel. And if you know of any, please post them down in the comments because I want to take a look at more. I was asking some people on the Facebook, on the Dungeon Dive group on Facebook, and I got like just overwhelmed with responses. So 40 or 50, hey, this is good, this is good. There are so many, and I'm not saying that these are the best or anything. The ones that I have, they just happen to be the ones that I have. And I'm always looking for more. But yeah, so Dungeoneer is a good one. In the realm of deck builders, I think Hero Realms is a pretty good little fantasy adventure game, especially if you play it with the Ruin of Thandar expansion, which basically adds a little kind of like narrative campaign where you are competing against an AI controlled deck of cards with your hero deck. Pretty fun little game, some good art, some good mechanisms, and it's a really basic deck builder at heart, but it can offer a lot of fun, especially if you're looking for a little like narrative adventure against an AI opponent. Death Angel, the card game from Fantasy Flight and Corey Konieczka. One of the most brutally difficult games I've ever played. I don't think I've ever actually won this game. This game might be harder than regular Space Hulk to win. Actually, Space Hulk, I've won quite a bit as the Marines in Space Hulk. This is a cool game. I do have one of the expansions. I think there was 2, maybe only 1. But this is a game where you, solo, I think it works really well solo, or I think up to 4 people are sharing a group of Space Marines, up to 6 people. You each control one Space Marine, and you are working down corridors. And the Hulk, the Space Hulk, the corridors are represented by a deck of cards, and you are facing challenges and having to survive an onslaught of Gene Stealers. Really neat system that simulates that feel of Space Hulk. And it simulates a very strategic kind of tactical skirmish game using cards in an abstract way. So pretty good game. I think it is a little difficult to find now. I think the expansion is as well. All right, so here's a small box game called by Antoine Bauza, and that is Samurai Spirit, a kind of samurai version of Ghost Stories. Not quite as good as Ghost Stories. I don't like it as much. It's kind of a Seven Samurai feel. You are working as a group of kind of supernatural samurais to protect a village from intruders. Kind of a tower defense style game. But it can be fun. I don't get enough out of it like I do Ghost Stories. No, I'll play Ghost Stories just about every day. This one has been going back and forth between the sale pile and not. I pulled it out recently because I was getting back into smaller games. So we'll see where it lands. This is a game that came out. It was kickstarted a couple years ago, I think. The Exorcism at the House of Moncton Falls. And it has some really, really nice art, a nice feel to it. It's all red, black, and white. Pretty cool little co-op game. It's kind of an adventure game. I would say it is more of just kind of a pure co-op, pandemic style threat management game where you are playing a group of investigators looking through a house trying to solve the haunts and stop the haunts before they overtake the house, that kind of thing. Really neat, kind of cute. I like it. It reminds me of kind of like an Edward Gorey, Tim Burton-esque art, kind of like the art in the game we just took a look at, Hero's Journey Home. But yeah, a neat little game. I like it. It's not fantastic, but it's easy, it's breezy, and it can be a lot of fun for the right group of people. And of course, no introduction here, but Escape the Dark Castle. This size here is kind of like the size where I top out at what I consider a small box game. Something like Shadows of Malice almost works. Something like Pathfinder Adventure Card Game almost works. But when I think of a small box game, I want something that I can easily put in a normal size backpack. That's kind of how I determine if it's a small sized game or not. But Escape from Dark Castle, this is like, I think, just about everything released for the game. All of the expansions fit in this small box. You don't need that giant, obnoxious collector's box. And if you have that giant, obnoxious collector's box, it's no longer a small box game. And this is much better. And it's super fun. You guys know I love that game. Two other Fantasy Flight games that fit that is Warhammer Quest Adventure Card Game. Now in this box, I also have the Terranoth Re-theme version. I combined them in one box. I prefer the Warhammer Quest version for a number of reasons. I played them both back to back, and now I can't remember why I prefer the Warhammer Quest. It's been a while since I played a full game of each of these. I think the Warhammer Quest one has more items that your heroes can use when they level up or something like that. There was one thing that I really liked about the Warhammer Quest version. I really wish that this was officially expanded on with more scenarios and more quests and more cards. It's a real shame that they abandoned this pretty quickly after it came out. All right, and then we have another one, Elder Sign, the Yahtzee-esque game of Arkham horror style, weird mythos fiction. This game is excellent if you get the Gates of Arkham expansion. So the Gates of Arkham expansion adds locations that you can travel around to, and it really does make the game feel more like Arkham Horror. And with that expansion, this game is pretty good. It can be still a little long, I think, for what it is, but for the amount of kind of like just immersive, kind of story-based, puzzly, Yahtzee style gaming, this is a really good game in a small box. All right, so one game that I got based off of a recommendation I haven't played yet, but that is God-Forsaken Scavengers. This looks pretty cool. I've heard it's pretty difficult. It has some really nice art. It has a unique look and kind of a unique theme to it. I've heard it's very challenging, and I've heard the rules are a little iffy, so I haven't felt the desire to jump into this one yet. But again, a little small box adventure game where you are scavenging and trying to survive. This is a game, Deep Space D6, a little dice game that, like Samurai Spirit, has been waffling back and forth between should I get rid of it, should I not. I have decided to keep this now because I am liking these small box games and I do want to dive into this. It is a game where you are in control of a spaceship and you have to survive just certain challenges. Kind of think of it kind of like that video game FTL, a solitaire crew assignment game. It's a dice assignment game. And I absolutely love that they made it look like an old choose your own adventure. This is a game that I just got, and I will be doing a video on it soon. This game was given to me by Play Now, the creators of the History Maker Golf that I just reviewed or just took a look at. And they are starting to make non-sports games. And this is a really fun little dice game where you are playing a group of cowboys and you are protecting your town from an onslaught of alien invaders. And it has some interesting mechanisms, some very clever use of keywords like History Maker Golf, and some clever use of dice. So stay tuned for a more detailed look at this game. Very fun. And then, of course, we have also already taken a look at Iron Helm. Now, since we have taken a look at that, I have gone ahead and purchased all of the expansion adventure packs, and I have not played those yet. And I am looking forward to it. Yes, that game crafter smell. Campfire, laser etched tokens, and ink. But yeah, really fun game. I like Rogue Dungeon quite a bit more than this game. I feel like this game, I need to play more. I need to play those expansions to see how it offers up variety. So I'll hold off on more judgment. If you want to see how I feel about Iron Helm, you can watch my video. Now we come to Unbroken, another game that has been in and out of my sale pile since it arrived. This is a very weird game that I have very mixed emotions on. I do want to do a full video on Unbroken. I love the look of this game. Set up, it looks awesome. It has great art. It's dark. It's evocative. When you look at it, you feel like you are in this dungeon. But when you play it, I feel more like I am playing a spreadsheet trying to balance a budget. I don't feel a sense of adventure. I'm trying to get into that mode where I can feel a sense of adventure for this because, like I said, it looks so cool and it has so many neat things. So this is one that I need to spend a little more time with. All right, and then of course we have Rogue Dungeon, my little indie darling. This and Quest for the Lost Pixel, two of the best games I've come across in years. Favorite games. I absolutely love Rogue Dungeon. You've seen my video on it probably. If you haven't, you can go check it out. But yeah, a great little kind of multi-deck dungeon crawl, roguelike solo game. Tons of interesting mechanisms and clever use of cards. Fantastic game. I really hope this game gets expanded on and developed upon in the future. One of the newest, maybe the newest game on this list is Dungeon Breakout here. So I have not played this yet, but this is the new one from Goblinko and Sean and Katie Auberg. And it is a very simple These are the rules. Very simple. This game might actually be more simple than Dungeon. Maybe. It's. I wish there was a little more to it. It's. I think it needs to be played with a group for it to be really, really fun. But we will be taking a look at that sometime in the near future. But Dungeon Breakout. And then, yes, one of the Choose Your Own Adventure games, House of Danger. I've taken a look at this already on the channel. Really fun little adventure game. Works really well solo. This is a game, Life and Legend, that I hardly hear anybody talk about. It's very odd. It is kind of a hippy-dippy, kind of maybe a spiritual world exploration game. Think of it as like you're kind of like King from Kung Fu, moving through this weird ethereal world, trying to discover yourself type thing. It's got a bunch of different ways to play it with competitive or a co-op against these weird AI creatures. Very odd game. It's taken me a long time to learn how to approach this game, and I'm still not sure that I really know how, but it is a game that I admire for just what it has done to stand out from the crowd. And then here, famously, the game that I got absolutely roasted for, and Story Master's Tales, Weirding Woods. A game that I did not like, mainly because of my expectations and how they marketed the game on their Kickstarter. As you know, they really pushed this as a accessible beginning RPG, and it's not anywhere near an RPG. It is a game book where you move around a map made of cards. So I did not like it, and my review got so many down votes and nasty comments. But I am going to try it again to see if maybe after I've removed myself from the expectations set up by the Kickstarter campaign, if maybe I can get into it for what it is and what it offers. So stay tuned. I might do a revisit of Story Master's Tales. Speaking of revisiting, we recently revisited Dark Venture. Fantastic game from Robert Lemon. This game and the next game we're going to take a look at probably offer the biggest experiences in the smallest boxes. I'm still not quite sure how Robert crammed so much stuff into this small box game. This game really does feel like a big, epic adventure experience, and a lot of that probably has to do with just kind of how slow it is and how crunchy it is and how many details you have to work with while playing the game. But set up on the table, it's one of the best looking games I have ever played. And again, speaking of huge games and small boxes, Legends Untold. I have done a review for this. In this set, I have the Great Sewers Novice set and the Cave, the Weeping Caves Novice set, both combined into one box to save some space. Yeah, the Great Sewers and the rule book there, and then there's one more book. I think it's over on the shelf over there. But yeah, this game offers up a huge experience of a card-based dungeon crawl adventure game. It's got one-off scenarios. You can play through a cinematic campaign. They have recently released a free-to-download additional cinematic campaign that has all these new scenarios and some new rules, which they are going to introduce officially into the next step. So this is like the novice set, and then I think the next step up set is coming. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where this series goes, because I like that game a lot. All right, the next up we have Bag of Dungeon, a game that I think is really good. This is kind of one step up from Dungeon. TSR's Dungeon kind of occupies the space between Dungeon and Dungeon Quest. And it can be as brutally difficult as Dungeon Quest. You can get your butt handed to you on the first or second turn on this game. But a lot of fun. I think one of the things that makes this game really fun is drawing the little item chits from the bag and putting them on your little paper doll hero. It's always a good thing. I'm not sure why more games don't use that kind of like little chit item system. Really fun. I wish there was one more bag of stuff in this game that offered up just some spice, just a little bit of variety of things you could discover in the dungeon. All right, The Quiet Year, maybe the smallest game on this table here. Geek Gamer, she just did a video on this a couple of days ago. Really neat map making game. Really interesting, especially if you combine this with the Microscope collaborative storytelling RPG game. Very cool stuff there. I have taken a look at both of these games. Dungeon of D, really cool one deck dungeon game. And then, of course, the Adventure of D, second edition, a overland version. I prefer Dungeon of D, but very creative use of cards being multiple things, cards having multiple uses. Highly recommend both of those games. And then we have these little games here, Dungeon Runner. Dungeon Runner is recently advertising on Facebook where you can get a set for $10, which is a deck of 52 cards. If you buy these from, I think it's like Drive-Thru Cards or Drive-Thru RPG, or I think maybe Game Crafter. If you buy these individually, $20 for a deck of cards, and the game is just, it's not that good. I had a really tough time playing it. I wasn't experiencing any fun or joy or anything. So I don't think I'm going to pursue more of these. For this, for a similar experience, I get a much better time with the game in the Burlap Sack, Hero's Journey Home, which is very similar to this. You are just working your way through a dungeon or through a deck of cards, encountering each card as you go. But I think Hero's Journey Home just has a lot more character, a lot more life. The art is more vibrant and evocative and just gives me an overall better experience. And finally on this table today, of course, we have Spire's End, which is getting reprinted. So everybody who missed the Kickstarter can jump on this really cool one deck adventure game where you're working your way through a tower. And it's kind of like a Death Trap Dungeon style. Really neat. I think you could probably play through it a few times to discover all of the secrets and everything that it has in store for you. So, all right, well, that was a look at the small box games that I have. Again, if you have any really cool suggestions, please post them below. I'm always going to be looking out for these small box experiences that give me that feeling of playing a great adventure game or a great dungeon crawl. So, all right, guys, take it easy, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.